Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Thursday, September 21st, 2017 edition of the Auburn Zoning Board of Appeals. Before I get started, I'd just like to ask, I know we have a big crowd tonight, if you have cell phones, if you can put them down to vibrate, please, so we can kind of keep the disturbances to a minimum. I also have to ask if anybody's recording the meeting this evening. Okay, so no one's recording the meeting, just officially, so we know. So for us, for a few minutes, folks, we didn't have a meeting last month, so we have to do a reorganization quickly. So I'm going to do that first, and then we'll open it to the public hearings. So we have a motion to open the meeting.
Motion to open the meeting.
We have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so the first step in reorganization, we are going to discuss the chair position. Do I have a motion to open for nominations for chair?
Motion open for nominations for chair.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Do I have any nominations for chair?
Mr. Chairman, I nominate the existing chair, Robert Tatro, chairman.
Thank you.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Do I have any further nominations? Okay, hearing none, seeing none, it is closed. Thank you. Second is for vice chair. Do I have a motion to open the hearing for the meeting for vice chair position?
Motion to open.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Do I have a nomination for vice chair?
Mr. Chairman, I nominate Michael Marin to stay in his existing position as vice chair.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Do I have any further nominations? Hearing none, seeing none, that portion is closed. Do I have a motion to close?
Close.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so motion to open a 7 o'clock hearing.
Motion open.
Second, please.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so the 7 o'clock p.m. hearing, applicant GOIS Holdings LLC requesting a special permit under section 8.2.3, extension of a non-conforming use of the Auburn zoning bylaws to allow the installation of a 651 kilowatt solar photovoltaic array on property located at 128 Packagug Street, Auburn, Mass. Map 12, parcel 68. Is the applicant present? Yes, sir. If you could approach the lectern, please, sir, introduce yourself and give us an overview of what you'd like to accomplish.
Certainly. My name is Michael Scott. I'm an engineer at Waterman. I've recently changed to WDA Design Group. The plans you see are under Waterman Design, but we reincorporated last week, so these predate that. I'm going to put the plans up on the board here if you can give me a second. What I've put up is an aerial backdrop to the plan that we filed with you folks, so it's got the same information. May help some of the abutters if there are questions. And then that's the plan. This is the plan that you folks have in your package. If you're familiar with the site, there are at 128 Packagug, top of the hill. This plan north is in this general direction. Packagug Street at the bottom. It's about a 4-acre, 3.8-acre site. There's presently 3 AM radio towers on the site. GOIS Holdings operates towers in Auburn. I know Ashland and several other communities in Massachusetts, Worcester-based business. As I understand it, the panels have been in place, the towers have been there since the late 20s, reinstalled or replaced in the late 50s. No intent to relocate those, nor any of the other structures, the 2 structures on the site. Those would all remain as part of this proposal. So on the ground surface where the property is primarily cleared and around some of the wooded perimeter, the area would be prepared for the 600 kilowatt array, which, as shown on the plan, comprised of a number of racks holding the solar panels. And if you've seen ground-mounted systems, maybe on the Pike or other adjacent to some of the state highways or other ones that have gone up, you'll know that they range anywhere from about 3 to 5, 3 to 8 feet in height. These tend to be about 3 to 6 feet off the ground, the particular package that Solar Flare installs. Solar Flare would be the design build firm, if you will. They are also a Massachusetts-based company in Ashland now, and essentially they would use the flat surface of the site for panels. You can see how they'd be set inside and around the existing towers. As I mentioned, the towers would stay. One of the towers has guy wires. Those would be accommodated. The panels would then be connected internally to an inverter system, so all the DC power that's generated is then sent to a power inverter. It's converted to AC power, and from there it's used to power the towers, the other equipment on site, with excess being routed out to the grid on Packagug Street. Okay.
Would any of the other gentlemen representing the companies like to speak now, or would you like to open it up? Okay. Do we want to open it up for questions first, or want to talk to abutters first?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to hear from any abutters if they're first.
I noticed we have quite a few abutters tonight, so I think that's going to be the best move. So if anyone would like to speak, if you haven't signed in already, if you could do so, please, because the minutes will be quite challenging with all of you people here. So do I have any of the abutters that actually want to get up and speak? If you could just approach the lectern, please, ma'am, and introduce yourself with your name and address and discuss your interest in the project.
Good evening. Thanks for this opportunity. My name is Gail Carberry. I live with my husband, my grandson, at 148 Packagug Street, which directly abuts this property. We have lived there for 11 years. That field is a habitat for a lot of wildlife. Rabbits, turkeys, young foxes, many, many animals. It's also a place where young kids have run and where people have walked their dogs and where the owners of the property have permitted, as good neighbors, a fair degree of mutual benefit for the people on Packagug Street. We do not mind radio towers. They were there when we bought the property. We're used to them. But we put a screen house on our property close to the property line so that we could enjoy the trees along the perimeter of our property and so that we could see across the field and enjoy that portion of peacefulness that makes Packagug, that neighborhood, so special. When I sit at my island in my kitchen, I can look out through my windows in my family room. Regardless of the season, I don't see the towers. The towers are further back. I see the field. I see giant trees along the Packagug Street. In the wintertime, as the plow comes by and carves that pathway, you wouldn't believe that you're not in Vermont. I look out across to the barn that my neighbor, Mr. Gadbois, has on his property. It's a clear view. It's a beautiful piece of property in a neighborhood setting. It's my understanding that Packagug Street some years ago was designated as a scenic byway. It is scenic. As you come through that winding road that leads up that hill, past an old white church, past a common, past a whole range of homes of different types, you come away with a sense that this is not a common village. This is a very important part of Auburn. This is an area where children walk to school. This is an area of homes, of families. I'm not opposed to solar energy. In fact, I very much favor solar energy. I have yet to put panels on my own home, but I would say that the change to that property would be devastating to what that community is. This is a community where families have run and played and enjoyed that field for a very long time. I fully understand that the community does not own the property, and I fully understand that there are property rights and opportunities for owners to use those properties as they deem appropriate. But I also fully believe that it is the work of this board to ensure the best interests of the people of Auburn. And I believe that the people who live in the Packagug Street area would benefit most by not developing that property, by placing those solar panels in that field. So I thank you. I will say one other thing. Over the years that we have lived there, we have mown part of the field, the closest part to our own property, about 30 feet out, because that field is full of all kinds of vegetations of all sorts, not the least of which is poison ivy. But it also has bitterroot. It has a lot of different kinds of species that are what is the word they say, invasive. It's very important that that field get mowed. I don't know when those solar panels go in how they will be maintained. I would hate to think that there would be herbicide sprayed to keep the weeds down, but I will tell you that there are a lot of invasive species that do grow on that property that will need to be controlled, and I don't know how they will do it. At this point, myself and my neighbor, Mr. Gadbois, have made sure that the field is well maintained. So I thank you very much for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, ma'am. Would anyone else like to speak?
This lady in the blue. Sure. What's his name?
My name's Mary Toth, and my son Kevin and his wife Martha and their 2 children are directly behind the towers on Arlington Street. I'm speaking on their behalf because both of them are deaf, and they asked me if I would come and represent them. They bought their property on Arlington Street about 15 years ago. And it has been a beautiful neighborhood with just, it's as Ms. Carberry said, all of the things that she mentioned were things that I had intended to mention as well. I think that the solar panels, and again, I'm not opposed to solar either, but I think that the change that's being recommended, it changes the entire nature of that environment, and it will make it a commercial property rather than a residential property. It has always been residential, even with the towers there. Granted, they cause havoc with telephones and so forth, but they, again, as she mentioned, that's something people have learned to live with. It currently has that vegetation buffer all around. One of the plans was, or part of the plan was to eliminate the trees that have been there for years and years, and makes that part of what makes Packagug a beautiful residential area. I'm sure anything else that I might add doesn't enhance what Ms. Carberry said, but I do also want to mention a safety issue with it. There is some research that shows that planes overhead can be very distracted by solar panels. I don't know if there's a response to that, and clearly we have JetBlue that we did everything but stand on our head and spit nickels to get here. We surely don't want to cause any kind of problems for them. I think that that would be worth looking into to see if that is a hazard for pilots going overhead. Somebody may have a good answer for that isn't fake news or whatever, but that would be worth checking with them. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Yes, sir? Again, if you could just give your name and address, please, before you begin.
Sure. My name's Joseph Sabato. I live at 39 Arlington Street. Lived there for 2.5 years. I have a wife, a 3.5-year-old daughter, and a about 3-week-old son.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to share my thoughts. Basically, I'm an environmental consultant for the power industry. That's what I do. I'm also a public health expert, and I have solar panels on my roof. So I kind of have a unique perspective for this project, and I think this project is a great idea. but I don't think it's a great location for the project. The size of the project, Mass Department of Energy Resources would classify this project as a large solar installation. And I know the zoning bylaw committee here in Auburn has been looking at amending the Auburn zoning regulations to sort of deal with this issue now that we're a green community. And I know that you guys must be aware of the numerous guidance documents to sort of aid zoning boards of the issues surrounding siting a large solar project adjacent to residential communities. And this is very much a residential and a historical area. There's a rich history to this area. And the people that live in this area are very proud of themselves, are very proud of it. A couple of the issues I have relating to the site plan is there's a lot of gaps in the information that I've been able to review about the project. The site plan, it shows that there's going to be tree clearing. It shows that there's going to be buffers to replace. There's really no discussion about the landscaping, the size of the trees that are going up to plant. I'm very concerned for my neighbors that abut the property in terms of the visual impact. What's going to happen when those existing trees that are quite large are removed, and if we plant them with something much smaller, now all of a sudden I'm concerned that their property values or their quality of life might diminish. Additionally, I've looked very closely at the plans, and I don't see any notation of a fence, which I find pretty troublesome given that it's proximate to the elementary school. I also note that I can appreciate that people really enjoy how the field looks and how beautiful the field looks. The condition of some of the buildings on the property really leaves a lot to be desired, and specifically having young children in that area, the condition of the fences surrounding the radio towers, they're decrepit and falling down in some spots and just don't look very sturdy for keeping teenagers off the radio towers. And I just have concerns that should this project be approved, that type of maintenance on the property is going to continue. And there really hasn't been any details in any of the documentation I've reviewed. DOER really talks about this being a pretty rigorous application process and application review. And given that we're very, very early in this process in Auburn of trying to designate specific sections of Auburn that would be appropriate for a large-scale solar, I think I really, really caution us trying to make a very hasty decision without additional information. It is a very tall point in Auburn. I believe it might be the tallest hill in that area. I'm concerned about the grading, the existing elevation, if they need to grade the site to level it for solar panels. I'm concerned there might be some drainage issues on the property. I'm concerned about the maintenance. What would happen if the solar panels become abandoned? That's another issue that's often tackled by zoning boards, that there's sort of assurances in place that there's a mechanism for dealing with those solar panels. And then lastly, I understand and can appreciate solar, and there's many economic benefits as a property owner with solar on my roof myself, but what is in this for Auburn? There's no power purchase agreement that I'm aware of. There's no payment in lieu of taxes that I'm aware of that's been agreed to at this stage. And you're asking people to forego the views and forego the enjoyment of their properties potentially, and maybe create a dangerous condition without really a carrot for the town of Auburn. Thank you guys for your consideration. A facility this size, located in a residential neighborhood with a nearby school, it really needs to go a much more rigorous review and have a much more rigorous plan. And I hope that you guys are mindful of that information, and hope that we can get some more details before we move forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Would anyone else care to speak? Aha, okay, please, one at a time, sir, if you may.
My name's Al Lisk. I'm at 137 Packagug Street, across the street from the radio towers. And thank you for the opportunity to say a few words here. I'll probably do more reading than I'm not being an expert on these, on panels, but I did some research on it, and I have some concerns. It's mainly health concerns after doing some research. I'll do some reading on it. I'll try not to be too long here, but there's some health issues that have been written up on solar energy. Solar energy can be a health hazard for people with electromagnetic hypersensitivity. Milder symptoms are headaches and restlessness. A person may not even know his or her symptoms are being caused by the solar panel system. There are studies that suggest that radiation of the type coming from solar electric systems, sometimes called dirty electricity, may have long-term health effects on healthy people as well, and may cause ADHD in school children. Modern solar systems use components that radiate radio frequency electromagnetic radiation, which can cause the symptoms. The main problem is the inverter. I won't go into that. I don't understand it that well anyway, but it's a device that takes the electricity from the solar panels and turns it into alternating current AC and puts it out on the electrical grid. The inverter generates radio frequency radiation, and that radiation can be picked up hundreds of feet away from the inverter. There have been cases where solar electric system became a problem for an electrically sensitive person living next door. And these towers, where these panels are going, it looks like it's going right up next to the borders, as many as are jammed in as possible in the entire 3.5 or 4 acres. So, and we have a lot of kids in the Arlington Street area, I think 10 or 12 kids in the 8 to 12 year range, and then some very younger ones that we heard about tonight. There's also a few kids on Packagug Street as well that, and of course there's a school just 2 or 3 houses away. Another concern, Robert Duvall of the National Fire Protection Association in Quincy said that these panels can generate enough electricity to electrocute someone. So if you've got kids climbing fences, as kids are prone to do, getting into that area, there could be some pretty bad news that occurs from something like that. Someone also mentioned that solar glare may impact the visibility of planes landing at Worcester Airport. And I contacted the Worcester Airport Operations Department, and they're reviewing that. Normally, on a rooftop, it wouldn't be a problem, but we're going to have about 4 acres of solar panels, and that could cause a glare, and the pilots are coming in, landing at Worcester Airport. So there have been instances in other parts of the country where this has been a problem. Some of the, if you're sensitive to EMFs, you may experience some of these symptoms, and EMF meaning electromagnetic fields, which can cause symptoms of illness. Nervous system symptoms like fatigue, stress, and sleep disturbances, skin symptoms, body symptoms like pains and aches in your muscles, eye symptoms, depression, a variety of less common symptoms like ear, nose, and throat symptoms, infertility, leukemia in children, breast cancer, or cancer clusters that have been linked to exposure to EMFs. So in addition to some of the comments made earlier tonight about the beautiful residential area, this is a pretty big health concern that I have. Now, I don't know, I'd be glad to leave copies of these articles with the zoning board if you want them. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you very much. Yes, sir?
Thank you for having us here tonight. My name is Greg LaBelle. I live at 22 Arlington Street with my family, my wife Erin, my son Aiden. We have been property owners there, abutting the backside of the property for a little over 10 years now. the previous speakers have spoken very eloquently about the nature of the location there on the top of Packagug. So I won't reiterate that, but I had some questions regarding the suitability of the area from what I have read up on regarding the model zoning regulations set forth in 2014 by the state of Massachusetts Department of Energy Resources. Is that it suggests that municipalities not just conduct bylaws, but or execute bylaws, but they conduct a feasibility study for the appropriateness of large-scale solar arrays. Have we done that? I mean, I'm not looking for an answer, but I think that's a good question. Other than the bylaws, what have these studies shown? And it's suggesting that they should be careful and thoughtfully executed. These feasibility studies is what they called it. Regarding the general requirements, Section 3 of the model zoning for regulation of solar energy systems. I noticed a few things in question on the map from solar panels. One, I believe there needs to be documentation of a prospective access and control. Today, there's a kind of a makeshift driveway that goes up to one of the main facilities or one of the main sheds. In the proposed map, proposed map, there is no road. It's gone. Where would that be? How would then, if there's no road, how would that impact the ability to maintain the facility? We have some pictures that we'll share for the board, actually the conditions of the field and the buildings there today. You'll see weeds everywhere. From time to time there'll be graffiti. I think some has been removed. There's new graffiti on one of the buildings here today. That you'll see. Regarding setbacks, the current setback design shows a setback area of roughly 15 feet. It is suggested through these model zoning rules that the setback area be a minimum of 50 feet. Now, I don't know what that does to the design of where the solar panels would go, or would there be less, maybe more, repositioned? But I would think in a residential area, if it would be to move forward, certainly next to a school zone, we want to have a little bit more protection that is appropriate for the neighborhood and the kids that do dwell there. In Arlington Street alone, there are 20 kids. And I've been there 10 years. There are people that have been longer than me. I would assume that, through the course of the next 30, 40 years, there'll be other people moving in with more kids. I bought my home from a family of 4. I mean, it's a neighborhood. I would agree that a project like this would greatly impact the well-being, the livelihood, the nature of what is happening there today. And I think that does speak to, I don't know how much, I don't think it gets a lot of attention or credence, but I believe in property value, and I think when you can't move to an area where your kids can do those things, and you don't want to move to the area, and then all of a sudden, if you want to invest your money, however much money you got, into a home where your kids can enjoy that, well, I think it's a simple question, regardless of a study. Do you want to buy a home next to a radio tower in a producing solar field? I mean, I think we've conceded that there's a radio tower there, and I'm all for profiting off the property, and I think they are already. But if I had to invest, I'd probably take my money down the road to someone else's house for sale, and I think that would drastically impact all of our abutters and people in the immediate area within view. So with that said, I think there's lots of things to yet be concerned as it relates to the setback area. I think doing some soft measurements off the proposed territory, if you will. The nearest solar panel is around 75 feet from my foundation today. The nearest building, however, is about 105 feet from my foundation. As I understand the property in Ashland, there's about a little over probably 200 feet between the primary or principal properties, however it's appropriately labeled. And, I do think that's too close. I think 100 feet is too close. But how would that be protected, maintained aesthetically? I mean, what are we all going to see as we don't look into the field anymore, potentially. So with that, I want to thank you for your time. I think it's clear, I don't think that this area, given some of the other comments is really appropriate for a project like this. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, sir? If you just approach the lectern, give us your name and address before you begin.
My name's Chuck Miller. I live at 34 Arlington Street. I've lived in Auburn for over 30 years, lived in Arlington Street for over 20 years. And one of the frustrating things I find in being an Auburn resident is anytime there's an open space of land, there's a group that says, let's build something on it. Once that land is gone, it's gone. And this town is becoming, I don't want to see the Shrewsburyization of Auburn. We don't have a lot of open space left. And I'll admit that's not the most usable parcel in town, but it's nice to drive by and see a piece of land that doesn't have anything built on it. The towers are bad enough, but at least there's some grass there. So that's my 2 cents. It's not the spot to put it. It's a residential neighborhood. It doesn't belong there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Yes, sir?
My name is David Molinare. I live at 152 Packagug Street. I don't directly abut it, but I walk by that location every single day. I walk my kids to school, up to Packagug School. And as of right now, on Packagug, there's already an influx of traffic. You have with the Pappas Arena, which is a great asset to this community. However, it does bring traffic down our streets. There's construction off of Carter Street, so there's construction vehicles up and down the Packagug Street day and night. The speed limit on Packagug Street is 35 miles an hour. Nobody in their right drives 35 miles an hour, and I stand in my driveway and I flag people down who are going too fast. The construction that will happen in that area will not only destroy or impact that road that just was repaved because of all the construction going on in that, it'll also tie up traffic that is already has an issue with the elementary school up the street. The neighborhood itself is a fantastic neighborhood. I've lived at Packagug Street for 10 years. Prior to that, my wife grew up in that house. That house has been in her family for over 30. So to see a solar panel company come in and just want to drop down roofs in a large area without giving consideration to the neighborhood, I think is a no-go in my book. The proximity to the street is too close. Again, you have one sidewalk across the street, and that access road that is no longer in the plans will probably be right off of Packagug Street. There'll probably be a gate if there is a fence. That's the way they're going to come and go to access that. My other question is, what happens in 20, 25 years, 30 years when these panels are no longer? Are we going to upgrade them? Are they just going to go to out the window or what? And it's property values. You want to buy a house next to a solar panel farm? Most people don't. They'll go further down the street, as somebody else said. There's no studies that say it brings up your property value or brings it down, but again, it's common sense. When you're going to purchase a house, you're going to look at your neighborhood and what's there. Right now, I'm one of the youngest members in that vicinity of where they want to build. A lot of those residents are going to be moving out, and you want to draw a younger crowd into that area because of the elementary school. But they're not going to want those houses directly across the street from a solar farm. Thank you for your time, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am?
Hi, my name is Claire Swenson, and I live at 35 Arlington Street. I'm going to be a little sensitive. My husband has lived in this town his whole entire life. I grew up in a beautiful neighborhood in Worcester, and when it was time for us to choose our house and where we were going to bring up our kids, we looked at every possibility in Auburn, and this was the place that we picked. Before I even moved here, I would come and walk miles upon miles up Packagug Hill. And when we bought our home, we've raised 2 children. One is 10 and one is 13. My 13-year-old used to walk to Packagug School school, an elementary with about 8 of our neighbors. And now they've all moved on to the middle school, and there are still young kids who walk to Packagug School. I can't imagine them walking, or all the kids who walk to and from Packagug School, because I'm also a public school teacher, not here in Auburn, with the solar panels. I also this summer had a fortunate experience of being able to go to the Historical Society with my children, and the history that exists in this town, specifically on Packagug Hill, is amazing. And by losing that to solar panels, we would lose a piece of our town's history. So I could have lived in a beautiful place in another town, but this town's history kept me there, and I would like for generations of other children and other families who've lived in this town for a long time to still do that. And for the beauty, I mean, there are some gorgeous big trees, and the plans that are laid out, those trees will not exist. I run this hill 3 to 4 times a week. I see kids, everybody. Even when I drive to work early in the morning before dawn is up, there are people walking their dogs, enjoying their coffee. This would be a sin to take away this beautiful piece of property that still keeps that open land history of this town. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, I see no more hands. So before I open it up to the members of the board for comment, Vice Chair Maron and myself are actually on a zoning board review committee right now, and the primary focus of our committee at this point is actually solar panels, how we're going to manage them, what we're going to do with them, where we allow them in particular areas of town. We are probably only a third of the way through this. It's very complex, and hopefully will be very well thought out when it's completed. And I appreciate all the input that everyone gave. Everyone gave some really thoughtful comments about it. So with that being said, there is actually an opening on the committee if somebody would like to volunteer. I noticed some very well-informed people here this evening that might want to go to the town hall and volunteer to be on this committee and help us finish drafting the solar bylaw. So with that being said, I'm going to open it up to the board. Mr. Cussy, do you have any comments?
Yeah, I'd like to hear from the engineer on some of the issues that the people brought in front.
Sure, I can address a handful of them. I certainly can't address public health. I can't address the airline or the aircraft concerns. But I can talk about a number of things related to zoning and some of the particulars about what's on the plan, what's not on the plan, how more information can get on the plan, what would be required from here. And I'm sure your building commissioner can verify that I'm speaking correctly if that need be the case. But specific to the plan as presented, it's a concept plan. This is a matter of use, not a matter of construction that we're talking about. So that may be why the plan, or I'll tell you as part of one of the people who drew it, is why the plan is thinner than it would be if this were approved, went to site plan. Clearly at that point, all the construction details, the fact that a fence is called for in the letter that you folks received in your package and is required by the electrical code, there will be a fence. The town is within its right to require screening as part of a site plan. So there was no attempt to suggest that this is the final plan by any means. This is to show where and how this could be constructed, provided that you deem it appropriate. Secondly, relative to the area, the property is a little less than 4 acres. The panels themselves, the area that would be under the panels and within the aisles between the panels is a little just over 1.5 acres. So when you subtract out the area between the panels, you're talking about less than 1 acre of actual panel footprint, if you will. So we typically call the array the fenced perimeter, which is going to be probably on the order of 3 acres, but the reality is the amount of coverage that the panels would sit on the ground is less than half that, or maybe even 1/4 of that. Relative to the setbacks, the plan shows the current setbacks that are required for this district, so it's 10 feet on the side and 15 on the front. That's a simple, that's on the plan. It's just not shown. It's not labeled, it's actually shown on the plan in 2 places. Relative to the tree clearing, there is a plan. The plan does show the tree clearing. This plan is to scale, and we're probably showing about a 35 to 40 foot buffer on the back. A little greater than that on the southern side, a little less than that, or about the same on the northern side. So you have anywhere between a 30 and 50 foot buffer. Now granted, right now those are mature trees, so you're not going to be left with 30 feet of dense vegetation in all likelihood. That would be something that would be discussed at site plan, I would expect, presuming it gets that far. What kind of screening? Again, the fence would be required. That's an electrical code issue. There would be a gate. There were questions about access. Clearly, there would be continued access to the facility. That would also be detailed on site plan. This road, straight, top of the hill, fantastic sight distance, so I'm not worried about traffic. At least in terms of access, and that would be, again, borne out during the site plan process. There was a question about grading. This site is actually fairly flat. Typically, solar can be on a slope as great as 20 to even maybe 25%. This is nowhere near that. There are no wetlands on the property, understanding that there's vegetation and there's wildlife. That's true of all open fields in Massachusetts, more or less these days. And yes, that's one of the parts of the job when you develop a piece of property. That does affect that. It's true of anything. I'm never happy about that, but that goes with the business. So I don't expect any grading on the site. And again, relative to traffic, I asked Mr. Goes, there's roughly 5 trips a year if the towers as they function today are operating appropriately. The solar folks you're going to see less than that once construction is complete. These things are remotely monitored. Unless there's a signal that this thing is not performing correctly or somebody reports tree fall or damage, they're not going out there. They don't need to. And I can let Solar Flare representatives that are here this evening, Jeff Constantine or Dan Greenwood, speak to a number of the other issues if you folks want to hear what they can offer relative to some of the other questions. But I can say that we've done about 5 or 6 projects with Solar Flare, and you can see their projects around. Ashland is the largest project we did with them, but we've done a few others in Westboro and out in Charlton. And in at least 2 instances, they are adjoining residential neighborhoods. And in the town of Charlton, for instance, where you're talking about these model zoning bylaws, and the gentleman who spoke from the solar or the power background, he's correct. There is that model zoning bylaw. Many communities have instituted processes ranging from nothing, like here, essentially site plan, to full-blown special permits, to restricting zoning or installation of these facilities to specific zones in town. I also understand through a few attorneys with whom we work, who are typically working for the solar side of the equation when we're working with them, that under Mass General Law, solar can't be restricted, it can only be reasonably regulated in any district. So that's why many communities don't regulate. And despite the fact that there are special permit requirements in many communities, there's a pushback against that whether or not that's legitimate. So I'm not an attorney. I watch enough of them speak at these kinds of hearings because I'm blessed to go to these hearings, and to be honest, these are some of the best and most truthful, moving speeches I've seen, or I guess relating personal experience and concerns. But that's part of the job too, and we see a lot of attorneys talk about those kinds of concerns, what you can and can't regulate. And again, I'm not here to threaten or scare or suggest that you can't, but I'm just saying we're watching this evolve everywhere, and I would say that what I see in Auburn is it's very early on, and I'm assuming this may be the first one that you've had come before you, or one of the first ones. Many communities have a much better grasp. So I think in terms of how the process plays out, because they've done it a few times, but I think ultimately the big issue here is if the use were permitted, this still has to go through the planning board for a site plan, and that's where many of the details that folks asked about, the fence, the look, concerns about traffic, grading, all those aspects of a plan, that would be fully vetted. All these people would be re-notified, presuming it were approved, and that additional information would be provided. And it can certainly be provided in some manner now. It's just that they're looking for a use and they're not looking for a final construction document. So I just want to make that clear to you folks if it wasn't evident in the application. So if anyone from Solar Flare wants to speak to some of the other matters, I can turn it over to them.
Thank you for meeting with us tonight, and thank you for all the comments. It's important to us to understand where the community stands on this project. I want to address a couple of the issues that were brought up by the residents. The first one being the traffic. The construction process we anticipate for this to last 2 to 3 months, 2 to 3 months of active construction. And during that time, the bulk of it is going to be a crew of approximately 6 people So six vehicles that will be accessing this site, pickup trucks and cars for the bulk of it. There will be a time, especially at the beginning, where there would be deliveries of panels, which would be a flatbed truck, but we're talking about a half a day, and delivery of construction materials like gravel that would probably take 2 to 3 days over the course of the entire 2.5 month construction project. So I want to make that clear. It's not going to be heavy construction at all times during the construction process. As Mike said earlier, clearly the intent of this plan is to have a fence around the property that would be higher than the panels themselves, and that's similar to what we've done on other projects that we've done. So the visibility wouldn't be an issue as far as from the street of these panels, or access to these panels from the street when the kids are walking to school. As far as glare goes, we've never heard of any complaints regarding solar and planes, but I can tell you this: we've installed projects at airports, and the process is you have to get the FAA approval before you can do construction. And we've currently done project at the Beverly Airport, and we have approval to do a project at the Plymouth Airport. And it's a process. I mean, you certainly have to let the FAA know that you're going to be putting panels on an airport and in close proximity to the taxiways and runways. But it's not something that has ever been shot down, disapproved. I'm also aware of projects in both the Pittsfield Airport and the Fitchburg Airport where they've done large ground-mounted, very similar to what we're proposing here on the airport, adjacent to the taxiways and runways. And lastly, I just wanted to address the health concerns. This also came up on the Ashland project that we did with Ghost Broadcasting. A lot of I'd be interested to see the report. I was not aware that there was a specific report about those health concerns related to solar. I have heard health concerns related to EMF, which is not that different from any electrical power lines. And so I want to make sure everybody understands that the power that's being produced by these panels is, first of all, it's not high voltage. It's at the same level that would be feeding this building and the homes that you see. It's the same type of electricity. There's really nothing different, even though it's solar. It does get transformed from DC to AC through the inverters. But I am not aware of any reports that talk about the negative health concerns related to those. My answer on the Ashland project, they were mostly worried about the power that was coming down the road through the neighborhood that we were installing the panels near. That electricity that was coming out of the solar farm is really no different than the electricity that's coming down the street right now to feed the towers. There's really no difference in the same power that's feeding the homes that are in the neighborhood. People are putting solar on their houses. I have solar on my house. So I think if there was a huge concern about the health risks, that we would have heard more about it, especially as a solar installer. Thank you.
Anyone else? Yes, sir. If you just approach the lectern and introduce yourself.
My name is Paul Goyce, and I own Goyce Holdings. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for coming in. And it's nice to meet a lot of neighbors we've never had a chance to. I have children. I understand your concerns. And when we started looking at this project, when we did Ashland a couple years ago, we talked about this project, and it kind of took a back seat because these tower sites can be a nuisance. I know they're not pleasant to the eye, and believe me, if we didn't have to keep them there, we wouldn't. The land it would be worth more without it. We understand that. But as a radio operator, as our primary business, we need the towers. And the towers put out the signal. The towers put out a lot more RF than any field will do. Okay? So If you're concerned about the RF, like Dan said, whether it's high-power wires or you're sitting next to a 50,000 watt radio station, these are only 5,000 watts, okay? You're gonna get a lot more RF from that. So, we're not here to hurt anybody. We're not here to have kids get hurt or electrocuted, God forbid, okay? When I look at a site like this, and people have said it's not in the best condition, I believe a nice privacy fence all the way around and to encompass the whole or most of the project would be a little more easy on the eye than it is right now. You speak of open spaces and everything like that. I caution you, don't let your children play there. Like people said, there's harmful things there, and I don't want somebody to get hurt on a piece of equipment that when they shouldn't be there to start with. Okay, I don't want that. I don't want that on my conscience, and we certainly don't want anything to happen to anybody. Any questions? I'd be happy to answer.
Excuse me, if you're gonna have any, they have to go through the chair.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So you have to sit back down, they have to come up, and we have to kind of field the questions to maintain integrity of the meeting. You have to go back up to the lectern, please, ma'am.
Through the chair to the engineer, if at all possible. If I understood you, you said something about 10 feet on the south side. I am the south side. So are you saying there will be panels 10 feet from our property line?
If I may.
Yes, please.
Yeah. I think they want to. But please stay here. The setback requirements are 10 on the side. The plan shows the setback. Easier to see on this plan. Let's do this. The setback line is here. The panels are here. The panels are on the order of 60 to 70 feet from the property line. The tree line, we do not show any clearing in this portion of the tree line.
Okay.
So if this is your home, we're not showing any clearing. We're showing a little clearing. I keep turning away from the mic. A little clearing on the southern property line, more in the southwestern corner, and then along that western edge, or what would be the Arlington Street side, and again a little clearing on the northern side. But the nearest panel, and I don't have a scale, but I'm going to say that's on the order of 70 to 80 feet from the property line.
Yes.
The home is another 10 to 15 feet, so it's not quite 100, but it's on the order of 90 feet from the nearest home.
Thank you.
Does they come back?
Yes, ma'am, go ahead.
Yes.
You have to go back to the microphone so the folks at home can hear you, please.
Aren't those setbacks established for residential property? That would not be a setback for a commercial enterprise, would it?
I wouldn't want to comment on that specifically right now, ma'am, but as the bylaw stands at this time, they are specific for residential.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Yes, please.
I also forgot to mention that the current panels we have now, the top of the panel is right here on me, and the bottom of the panel is at my knees. It's at a 20-some-odd degree incline. So once you put a 6-foot private fence, privacy fence, you will not see these panels. So.
Yes, ma'am?
Hi, my name is Sue Russell, and I live at 149 Packagug Street. I do not abut the property. We live diagonally across from it. And my question to you is, how specifically is the town of Auburn going to benefit these solar panels going in?
I can speak from our other experiences where it would be property tax levied on the panels, and that's substantial yearly. And also, we'd be happy, and we explained that to the other meeting that we've had with the preliminary meeting, that we would be happy to enter into a PPA agreement where there would be built-in savings for the electricity that's produced for the town.
Mr. Cussy, do you have any further questions?
I don't have any right now.
Okay. Mr. Chicolo?
I don't.
Mr. Marin?
Yeah, I do, Mr. Chairman. If I may, to the applicant, if Mr. Scott, if you could approach, please, Mr. Scott. Please. A couple of questions have been, thank you, sir. A couple of questions have been raised about the longevity, lifespan, and what happens down the road to these panels. I don't have the background or the time spent in the longevity of these systems. I see a lot of them going up on roofs, but I don't see them coming down yet, and I don't know that we've essentially gone through that period of time when we see either replacement or discardment. So can you speak to the long-term plan of this equipment?
I can. Jeff, do you want to field that? I'm going to let the installer and operator answer that.
Certainly.
I'm Jeff Constantine. I'm the VP of Operations for Solar Flare, so I would be overseeing all of the construction that goes on. With regards to the modules themselves, they have a warranty of 25 years. So the manufacturer warranties the output for 25 years. So the integrity of the panel is warranted for 25 years. It's going to last longer than that in theory. Have we seen that yet in this area? No. But keep in mind that even as the modules get older, they're made to stay outside and they're made to withstand the weather. They're not going to be like a home that goes 25, 30, 40 years and needs repainting, or the shingles look bad, or the screens have broken. These modules, they look the same today as modules we put in 10 years ago. There's really virtually no difference in what they look like. So I hope that at least sheds a little bit of light on...
It does. I have one follow-up question, though. Sure. What is the longest span on an installation that you've seen? What's the longest lifespan that you've seen on this equipment to date?
Well, we have been in the business for 10 years. So we have, everything we've installed is still up and running.
So we don't have any data on anything 10 years post?
Not Solar Flare itself. But Dan, I don't know if Dan Greenwood, our VP of Business Development.
You have to approach the microphone,
yeah,
sir.
I'm aware of a public project in Beverly, Massachusetts that was installed approximately 30 years ago and is still being still in service.
Okay. Nothing at this time, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen.
Ms. Blaze?
I have no questions.
Ms. Roach?
Nope.
I just have one really simple question, and I know this is going to probably sound really simple, but you get a snowstorm, you have 2 or 3 feet of snow, your enclosure is now buried in snow. How does that manage? What do you do with that? Do they automatically melt off because of the radiant heat, or?
Sure. By enclosure, you mean the modules, or you mean the inverter?
Let's say so you have a fenced-in area, you have all these solar panels, and then we get a blizzard, and we get 3 or 4 feet of snow, which is not uncommon, especially in the higher elevations.
Sure.
How is that managed?
It's just nature takes it away. The snow, they're on a 20-degree pitch. So what ends up happening is the snow will pile up at the bottom of them. And they heat up nicely, so they shed the snow nicely. So once heat gets behind the back sheet of the module itself, it generates enough heat that you will see on the modules, you'll see it start to just gradually start coming down. You'll see the blue start appearing, and the snow will melt away.
Okay. Thank you.
Of course.
Mr. Chairman, I do have one question about that. How hot do these panels get? Could I take my hand and put it right on a module?
Not all day long, no. It's like anything else, like a hot roof or a hot piece of metal. It's glass. So during the middle of the summer, if you touch it, it's hot. Can you leave your hand on it all the time? No, it depends, I guess, on your tolerance.
Would it burn my hand if I left my hand on there for 3 seconds?
I can't say that. I don't have that answer. It gets hot, but 3 seconds, 5 seconds, 10 seconds, they do get hot. They're glass.
Okay. Thank you.
Of course.
Yes, ma'am.
If these panels are that hot, would that not affect some of the nearby environment, people sitting outside in their patio? How is this for the people who are on the back side of those panels in the neighborhood, say on Arlington Street? Would this not make a difference to those people in terms of heat?
I can say no, because the bulk of the heat is being generated by the sun itself. It's not, these modules aren't becoming heaters. It's not like you would walk by there and feel a warmth of air. It's nothing like that. The sun beating down on them is what generates the power for them. So when they heat up, they generate the power. But that all dissipates through the module. You don't feel any of that walking by it. There is no ambient temperature change.
Any other questions from the board members? Any other comments from the public? Yes, sir.
Oh, it's the same guy, right?
Additional questions from the family, and thanks for allowing me back up. Citing the model zoning rules, or guidelines, if you will, it does say that the preferred locations are commercial districts, vacant, undisturbed lots, and/or industrial areas. I think some of our first presenters tonight really spoke articulately that this is not any of those. While I get some warm and fuzzies, like, hey, this is only going to take really only an acre and a half. I think we really have to add in the empty space between that too, because that is also going to take up land and be fenced in. Questions: will there be cameras monitoring the facility? Will there be any noise generated by the inverter? And what kind of fencing is proposed? God bless you.
Excuse me, I'm sorry.
Sure. You guys, I guess. Yeah. Cameras, fencing, what kind of fencing, and what kind of noise would be generated by the entire property?
It's my understanding that the electrical code requires the fence of the certain height, 6 or 7 feet, that could be augmented. That would be a chain link minimum security type fence. That certainly could be augmented. Again, I mentioned that this would require site plan review. In other instances, we've seen vegetation screening, arborvitae, some other sort of dense vegetation, stockade fence, or some other sort of privacy fence. So that's required. The cameras we've actually had this conversation with Solar Flare on the first project we did in Charlton with them, and it was a suggestion by the police department being concerned that there would be trespassers. It was a little more remote, and that there might be theft. I don't know if it's still going on, but there was a period where you might have read about some of the deaths, people trying to remove copper from transformers or certainly from construction sites. So there was a little bit of concern, is this going to be an attractive nuisance because it's remote? And in that instance, ultimately there were no cameras. The problem with cameras is, unless it's in the right place at the right time on a large site like this, you're not going to capture anything of any real use. There is warning signage that's required to identify it. So that would be on the fencing. And the noise, that's been a question. We work for Solar Flare. We work for about 5 other solar installers around the state as well. And generally speaking, the inverter is the noise generating component at the site. It's a cabinet. It's the size of a couple refrigerators in layman's terms. probably a little bigger than that. It does generate some sound, and generally speaking, it's like more or less what I'm doing right now without the microphone, just a conversational, and of course sound diminishes with distance, and it's exponential, so at 60, 80 feet, you're not going to hear my voice without the microphone, you're not going to hear the inverter, certainly not with the background noise of wind in the leaves or vehicles on the street. So the noise is generally not a concern. I do know that in one instance, and again, the inverter is usually situated central to the site, and that's just an efficiency issue. It's the least run of copper to it. It's the cheapest place to put it. It's the most economical from an electrical loss perspective. All these things that the electrical engineers have passed on to me. And by virtue of being nestled in the middle, not only is it the most remote from anybody who would hear it, it's also protected or surrounded by the panels which shield sound, and it's protected by the fence, and then you have the vegetation. So the sound is, I would say, probably the least impact you're going to have from this, other than during the construction process, which again is going to last 2 to 3 months. So,
okay, Mr. Chairman, if you could remain there for a minute.
Yes, Mr. Chacolo, please.
What have you seen in your experience with these that has been the worst malfunction that has occurred? Has any fire ever occurred from a malfunction?
As a designer of the sites, the fear that we hear from fire departments, or the concern or from neighbors, is actually they typically are grassland areas, and actually one of the comments that was made was about, I think the gentleman said undisturbed sites, but I think he meant disturbed. This is a disturbed site. This is not necessarily the ideal candidate, but it's up the list of ideal candidates, not because of the residences, and I'm not trying to speak to that, but because of its an industrial use. There's a power takeoff immediately available to it. It is already cleared, and the power grid is right there. So from a strictly engineering, not setting aside, I don't live in the neighborhood, obviously, and I understand that side of it, but from an engineering standpoint and a siting standpoint, this is a great spot. The concerns from the fire department tend to be grass wildland fires on some of these larger arrays, and we've done arrays on 30 to 50 acres. So this is obviously a very small, to be classified a large scale ground mounted, it has to be 1/4 of a megawatt. This is just slightly over 1/2 a megawatt. So this is a small, large ground mounted system. It would be, I think, the smallest system we've worked on at our office, but the concern is not the electrical components causing a fire. The concern is you have this large facility that's fenced, and there's a wildfire internal to it.
So you have not observed
functions
whatsoever?
No, not. And again, I'm not on the solar side of it, but I'm not aware of any of the companies who've worked for having an electrical failure.
And can these people address and answer likewise?
Yes, I can confirm that there's been no fires from any components related to our projects. We've installed 6 ground-mounted projects of, larger than these. Charlton, Framingham, Ashland, and there's been no malfunction whatsoever.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Nothing else? Okay, so folks, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to close the public portion of the hearing, which means I'm not going to accept any more comments from either the applicant or the residents, and we're going to have a little discussion between the board members here to determine which way we're going to go this evening, and then I'll open it back up to you. So, we have a motion to close the public hearing?
Motion to close the public hearing?
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Mr. Cussy?
I don't have a ton of questions here. My concern is where it sits. Packagug is a congested area, and I'm concerned for the neighbors. But it looks like they did a pretty thorough job of keeping the distance from boundaries, that they're keeping it small. And it would go in front of site plan, the planning board. But my concern would be the neighbors.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I have to say.
Mr. Chacolo?
To begin with, this is a non-conforming use there, and this is an extension of a non-conforming use that appears to significantly impact the area.
Okay. Mr. Maron?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Along the lines of Mr. Chacolo, as I see the applicant is requesting an expansion of a pre-existing non-conforming use. And so I call the board's attention to 8.2.2 and 2.3. And I just want to read a portion of that as we're deciding here. So a non-conforming use may be changed to another non-conforming use by special permit. That permit would require the following condition. Proposed use is more or equally in harmony with the character of the neighborhood. It goes on to say the applicable requirements of the zoning district than the existing use. But what turns me is, for us to consider this as a changing non-conforming use, I think we must consider the proposed use that would be more or equally in harmony with the character of the neighborhood. As an engineer, I can certainly appreciate that this spot, and I think one of the final comments of the applicant noting this site and the power supply and the towers are there, I think from an engineering tactical perspective, this does have certain advantages. But I see our role is to take a look at the basic question of does it fit?
Thank you. Ms. Blaze?
Yeah, I would agree that it doesn't, I don't believe it really fits in the neighborhood. It's very residential, and I would rather see it in a more commercial zoned area and be more comfortable when we have the bylaws set. Make a decision.
Ms. Roach?
I think I have, my biggest problem is that right now we're in the process of a bylaw review. Specific to this, this is definitely gonna come up more and more. I just don't think it's the right spot. You asked me to put it on Route 20. I am a yes all day long. But if I lived on Packagug, I can't, I just feel like I can't say that this is legitimately a good area. I think everybody seems to be open to the use of solar, and everyone says that until it's in their neighborhood. I would say the same if it was in mine. But if I had to make a guess on when the bylaw review committee is done and we have some new specs for what we think would be appropriate locations, I don't think this one would be one of them. So.
Okay, thank you. My only concern that I have is that, since we've all mentioned it already, that we were in a review committee right now developing a solar bylaw and we don't have one, to make a decision, I think leaves the board for liability, it leaves the town for liability.
Agree.
Without having a solid footing and something, an appropriate bylaw that was approved by the town meeting and then also approved by the Attorney General's office. And we don't have those in our hands right now, and we're not very close to having them. So I think making a decision on this would be very challenging. So with that being said, I don't intend to close the proposal or anything like that, but what I think would be advisable for us as a board is to consider a continuation and then seek some legal consultants from a town attorney.
Mr. Chairman?
And again, I'm leaving this for discussion. This is what we're
That's
here
fine, yes. I would be inclined to make a motion to deny this particular special permit at this particular time. And if we have the possibility within our means to, like we do with anything else, whether it's amended, but state that it does not have to be specifically totally amended to be reviewed again once we have a town bylaw. If we denied this evening, you'd have to wait 2 years to bring it back. And I'm trying to look at both sides and say that I think this particular proposal in this particular site is not good, and I would deny it. But I don't want to deny the petitioner the ability to come back sooner than 2 years the mechanism to do that, do we have that available to us?
I think you'd have to withdraw.
Caleb, do we have the opportunity to exercise that right?
I just have a couple comments through the chair. The fact that the town doesn't have a solar bylaw, I don't believe the board should look at that or hold that against the applicant.
Okay.
The only thing the applicant here is here for is for the use. So the only thing the board should be considering and looking at is section 935 and those questions of whether the special permit can be approved or not approved.
Under those conditions, Mr. Chairman, I would make a propose a motion to deny the special permit.
I'm going to review 9.3.5 before I entertain any motions, just so we have all this here. So according to our building commissioner, 9.3.5 of the Auburn zoning bylaws, in acting upon special permits, the special permit granting authority, which is the zoning board, shall consider the following criteria. So I'm very familiar with these because I wrote several decisions on it, and they're a little bit lengthy, but I'll try to abbreviate them and keep them intact. So we go through 9.3.5.1 all the way to 9. So it's the degree to which the activity, site plan, and building design are consistent with the surrounding development, the capability of the town to serve the premises, considering existing roads, etc., impact on the town's educational facilities, the consequences for adjoining premises of sound, light, odor, noise, or other disturbances, the degree to which the proposal results in air or water pollution, topographical change, removal of mature trees or other botanical assets, removal of cover vegetation, risk of erosion or siltation, increased storm runoff from the site or displacement of natural habitats, site distance and traffic safety at the entrance of town roads, environmental compatibility of the proposal with the neighborhood character, employment and fiscal consequences, and the degree to which the proposed development is consistent with Auburn's revised master plan. So those are the criteria that we have to, per instruction of Mr. Moody, to consider when we're going to vote on this particular application.
I do believe the current bylaws that are in existence also offer a sub-guidelines, such as Mr. Marin read, because this is an extension of a non-conforming use. It's not just a special permit, it's a special permit for a non-conforming use.
And I agree.
And I would,
going back to
therefore, I would still offer my motion.
So I want to also just go before I do that, 8.2 non-conforming uses, changing, and this is the same paragraph that Mr. Marin read, but I'm just going to point a couple of things out. Changing a non-conforming use may be changed to another non-conforming use by special permit from the Board of Appeals, provided the Board of Appeals finds that the proposed use is more or equally in harmony with the character, as Mr. Marin stated, the neighborhood and applicable requirements of the zoning district than the existing use. So I think the key word also, though it's very small, is than the existing use. So does this improve or degrade the existing use? So with that being said,
Mr. Chairman, one final comment.
Yes.
And I do appreciate the thoughtfulness in which you were trying to approach the applicant, but I would suggest in concert with the building commissioner, what we have before us is an applicant with our current bylaws and the restrictions within granting our current special permit. And so, although I know you and I are tied to a fair amount of study and writing on this issue specifically in the bylaw review committee, I would subject that I think that we have enough information in front of us based on this application and based on the bylaws that we currently have in this special permitting to make some decisions tonight.
okay. Do the other members of the board agree with that? Mr. Cussy?
Yep.
Mr. Chacolo?
I do.
Ms. Blaze?
I do.
Ms. Roach?
I do.
Okay. So do I have a motion on the floor regarding the proposal?
Do you want me to make another one?
Yes, I do, actually. For the record.
For the record, okay. A motion to deny the special permit.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, so Mr. Cussy, your vote?
Yep, deny.
Okay. Ms. Roach?
Deny.
And I deny. So that's where we stand right now.
Sorry, team.
All right, I'm going to propose a 5-minute recess, allow people to vacate without some noise, and we'll move on to our next hearing. So I do have a proposal for a 5-minute recess.
Proposal for a 5-minute recess?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Thank you for being here, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, do I have a motion to come out of recess?
Motion to come out of recess.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so 710 applicant, I know we're a little behind schedule, I apologize. Applicant Adam and Catherine Rinnis requesting a special permit under section 3.2.2.1 of the Auburn zoning bylaw to allow a two-family on property located at 9 Elm Street, Auburn, Mass, map 57, parcel 12. Is the applicant present?
Yes, sir.
If we could just approach the lectern, please, ma'am, introduce yourself and give us an overview of what you'd like to accomplish.
My name is Katie Rennis, and I, with my husband Adam, are the owner of 9 Elm Street. And our request is for a permit. We currently live on 9 Elm Street. It's a general industrial zone, so we have a current non-conforming use of the property with a single family. And we're requesting a permit to change to another non-conforming use to allow a two-family, to allow family members of mine to move in.
Okay.
So again, the request is the permit is to add on to the existing structure on the back side of it. It would be roughly a little over, I think, 1,000 square foot, and that's why we're requesting a change to a two-family versus an accessory apartment. We have talked to a builder who their business is housed in Auburn. It's New England Home Development on Southbridge Street. So by using them, we were hoping to provide business to a business in Auburn. And I did review in my brief to the board the topics on the zoning bylaw 9.3.5. If you wanted me to review that, I can. We felt that the special permit we were requesting falls under that zoning bylaw, and that the information that I had typed out was in response to that criteria. In regards to the first point, our neighborhood is closest to Route 20, and there's a mixture of industrial and business. Right across the street from us is an electrical company. On either side of us is residential properties, and diagonal to us is another residential. To the back of us is the railroad, and that's like what is directly nearby. So we felt that the zoning requesting the permit for the zoning change would be in harmony with the nature of the community, the neighborhood, because it's a mixture of residential and business, and we're just adding a residential. Please forgive me, I'm very nervous in front of people.
Okay. I get nervous every time I stop, so don't worry about it.
So again, the proposed activity and the site plan that we were talking about, we felt were consistent because of the development of the neighborhood. Because this is a general industrial zone, I tried to provide a map that showed that I think the requirement is a 10-foot setback from the adjacent property lines, and one side is 25 feet and another is 60 feet away. And because the addition would be directly attached to the rear of our house, going straight back on our property, not to the side.
Okay.
In regards to any disturbance to the neighborhood in the construction of it, is that the electrical wires go in front of the house, so any connection would be already applied to the house as it stands, the structure as it stands. And I already spoke to the Auburn Water District, and the pipeline for water goes on our side of the street, so there should be minimal disturbance on that road. I didn't feel that there would be any impact to the educational facility because we're not right nearby any school. In regards to sound, light, odor, noise, or other disturbances, I felt that they'd be short-lived for the time of construction, which when we spoke to the builder, he said that it would be approximately 8 to 12 weeks is how long that it would take, because it's a modular construction. So that's how long he felt that it would take. Currently, day to day, there's the railroad and the train comes through with its horn, and they also redeveloped a building that's next to that I believe is like a well fracking company, and they have a lot of noise on their property every day. I don't really know what it is, what they're doing, because I can't see, but there's like constant noise, which doesn't bother us, but we shouldn't be adding. We're very quiet people. On the current property and behind our house are 2 sheds that we would tear down to build this addition, and right next to those is a grouping of like 3 or 4 mature trees, but they show signs of that they're dying. There's a lot of branches even in the spring or summer that do not have any leaf growth, so we were going to talk about removing them in any case. Our plans for our property, it's about roughly an acre of land, is we wanted to put more trees within the property for that. In terms of grading of the property, I was going to discuss that with the builders, but it's a pretty flat land with some angle away from the house into the center of the current property. All construction equipment would be housed on our property. Nothing should be in the street causing any type of blockage there. And I'm trying to see what else I wanted to point out. In regards to 9.3.5.9, Auburn's master plan, I was looking through that in regards to the land use goals and objectives. I felt that it was consistent in that it adds diversity of housing in the town of Auburn, being a 2-family. Currently, our plan is to have our current family members move in because they want to become part of this town. I went to school here, I moved out for a time, and I wanted to come back to raise my daughter, and she's 5 and in preschool, and we're very happy here. So I wanted to bring my family with me. So yeah, I think that's it.
Well, I have to say, before we continue, it was a very well thought out and very good application. You addressed all the issues.
Thank you.
The specific areas of the bylaw, so I don't think you should be nervous. You did a very good job.
Thank you.
Do I have any abutters that would like to speak? Hearing none, seeing none. Okay, Mr. Cussy?
No, I think it fits. It's a good project. I'm good with it.
Okay. Mr. Chacolo?
Do we have anywhere a number on the size of the amount of square footage in the lot?
I think she said it on the lot.
Yeah.
If I may, through the chair, it's right around 43,000.99 acres, I believe. It's just under an acre.
Okay. Thank you, Kevin. Other than that, I have no question. Oh, yes. In your plan, it may be my old age, but I did not see a second means of egress on the plan.
There should be another packet. You mean in regards to the addition, the proposed
That's correct,
addition?
yes.
It should be, this is the packet that I'm referring to. And I'm not an architect, so please forgive
As
me.
this is what you have on the left here, that's the addition you're proposing?
This is the addition schematic. I know it was a little confusing how we printed it out. This is what the addition is going to look like. The smaller part is the connecting point to the current structure, almost like a mudroom, if you will. So there was going to be that door that it's showing right there as a means of egress.
Okay.
And then on the opposite side, there was going to be like another patio door. It shows it, again, on the schematic. If you're looking at this is the mudroom. This was going to be another like porch door or some kind of door that they were going to build as a second means of egress.
You have a picture here of this slider?
Yeah.
Slider? Okay.
Yeah.
Fine. That's fine. Thank you. That's all, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Maron?
Thank you for being here. I don't have any questions, Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Blaze?
Just a little bit with parking. So how many vehicles do you think you'd have there? It looks like a long, narrow driveway.
There would be 2. Currently, I can fit 2 side by side, and it's like a deep driveway. My plan right now is I have there's 2 stumps on either end of my driveway, and I want to like grind those out and eventually maybe even like repave to make it wider. But currently, even with myself and my family that's coming, I'm one driver and the other person is a driver, so it would only be 2 vehicles on property.
So you got one.
At most.
And the slider.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Ms. Rose?
This is the one right there.
Connected to town sewer?
Currently, our current structure is connected to town sewer, so we wanted to add,
It's going like this.
the 2-family as well.
That's probably the point of it.
And that was my only question. So I'm assuming it's town water also then, correct? Just for the record?
It is well water.
It is well water. Okay.
But what we wanted to do when we spoke to the builder is we want to connect to town water. And that's why I had spoken to the Auburn Water District to, one, find out where the pipeline ran, which is on our side of the street, because that would affect how much digging in the road it would create. And they said that it was on our side. So our plan in building this is to connect to town water.
Okay.
And then the builder would come up with a proposal to collapse the current well and disconnect that.
Okay.
So both sides of the house would both be use the town water?
That is what we wanted.
Okay. Any further questions or comments?
I was just, does Caleb have anything? Do you have anything on this?
I don't.
So before I continue with a proposal here, or excuse me, a motion, we have a standard special permit conditions. There's a list here that I'm not going to read them all, but Kayla will provide to you.
Okay.
But just to go over, so you have to register at the Registry of Deeds. You have to make sure that you begin construction within 6 months. Obviously, it has to be compliant with all the building codes, commission requirements, that type of thing.
Okay.
And you will get a copy of those.
Okay.
Provided this happens.
Thank you.
So
Is
do
this
I have
for
a
me?
motion to close the public hearing?
Motion to close public hearing?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Do I have a motion on the application?
I'll make a motion to approve the application for a special permit under section 3.2.2.1 of the zoning bylaws to allow a two-family on property located at 9 Elm Street in Auburn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
You'll be able to see Caleb at some point in the next few days, I'm assuming, probably next week maybe. You get all your paperwork squared away and then he can start a schedule with you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good evening. Thank you.
Okay, so our next 720, applicant Herb Chambers requesting a special permit under section 7.6 signs to attach a wall sign 176.81 square feet on the building located at 809 Washington Street, Auburn, Mass. Map 60, parcel 6 is the applicant present. If you could approach the lectern, please, sir, introduce yourself and give us an overview of what you're looking to accomplish.
Good evening, my name is Philip Naffa. I work for Harvey Signs. I'm a representative of Patterson Sign, which is Toyota's main U.S. sign supplier, and we're just the company that's been sub-hired to do this install. Basically, what they're looking for is to install new signage on the new building that is going to be reconstructed. I'm not 100% sure how much of the old building is staying. I typically don't get that far into the project. I just know that the new buildings get installed or built, and then I go in and install the new signage after. Their number one reason for the signs being that the size they are is it's a direct correlation to Toyota's logo in relation to their building. It's their logo, just like, you know, Oreo is Oreo and McDonald's is a big M. Their size of their sign is based on the size of their buildings. Understanding that we are over the allowable square footage, which is hence why we're here tonight. A couple things I want to touch on is the signs are not going to be any brighter just because they're larger. I feel like that's a common misconception in this industry, that people say, oh, you're putting a bigger sign up, it's going to be a lot brighter. It's still the same lumens, it's just we use larger LED modules. So if the sign is a foot by a foot, we use smaller compact modules. If it's 100 feet by 100, we just use larger modules. It still puts out the same output, still uses the same voltage per module, nothing changes. In relation to where it's located on the property, the signs would not have any aspect to the back of the building. There's no illumination to the back. It's all front lit where their signs are now, which faces the other side of Route 20, which is another car dealership and a lot where they store cars. So there's no concern about light shining in people's windows, being obstructive at night. Typically the signs are only kept on during hours of operation. If it is past that, it's very minimal. They will not run continuously through the night. They do not, they don't flash, they don't blink, they don't strobe, they don't do any of that. One of the newest technologies that they have come out with is on the service reception letters. They do a new vinyl that is perforated, so during the day they look black, at night they light up gray. So they have tiny little holes in them. So as the sun goes down and the signs come on, you don't get a quick transition right to the bright white with the old neon. And then when LEDs first came out, they had these super mega bright modules that would just burn through the cans, and people would be like, "Oh my God, I can't see." They don't do that anymore. Now they're actually mounted to the side of the cans, so they face in, which directs light as an ambient light, as opposed to straight out the front of the sign, pointing, blinding you in the face. So they won't be as bright as the typical white-faced letters that you see on some signs. I understand that there's really no hardship for this, and I tried to come up with something as best I could. I don't feel that the signs being this much bigger will help Toyota sell more Priuses. I just feel that their biggest thing is that it's a direct relation to their logo as a conglomerate of a company. They're just trying to keep their logo consistent with all of their businesses and all of their brands within all the other towns. And basically, that's all I got for it.
Thank you. Do we have any abutters present? None here. Okay. Mr. Cussy, questions or concerns?
No, I believe that in the past, we've allowed the larger signs on these dealerships.
Right. I think when these bylaws were written, we have a sort of what we consider a traditional sign, which would be a square, round, or rectangle that was to be completely full. And now we see these more sort of modern signs where you have a lot of wall space in between. You see this Toyota logo. I mean, again, this is something that we have to discuss on the zoning bylaw review committee when that does come up, but other priorities take precedent right now.
If I can, real quick, sorry, one thing I did forget to mention is the front of the building, they call it a portal. It's frosted glass with interior illumination. So that helps to kind of draw out, or I said dull, the red from the actual logo itself, as opposed to if it was on just a solid black wall and there was no light around it, you would have this big, giant red Toyota logo. But where the whole front of that building lights up with internal ambient light, it does do a really well job of kind of dimming down that red and blending it all into the building, as opposed to it just being like a spotlight on the center of the building in one spot.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good.
Mr. Chicolo.
I think that the size of this sign, although it's larger than what our bylaw states, I think it's in line with the size of the building. I think it goes fine. I'm fine.
Okay. Mr. Maron.
Thank you for being here. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't have any questions for the applicant, but I would agree that this aligns with their branding and conforms with, from an industrial use, the size of the building. And so I don't see this being, I don't see this being a problem.
Ms. Blaze?
I have no issues, no.
Ms. Roach?
Nope, good.
Okay. And I tend to agree. We've had this same experience, as Mr. Cussy mentioned, with other dealerships coming in. They want to have their particular brand and style. The design layout in the building, they tend to be aesthetically pleasing, even though they may be not necessarily conforming to our bylaws, but I agree. So is there a motion to close the public hearing?
Motion to close?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Do I have a motion on the proposal?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Good luck,
Thank you.
sir.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Have a
Thank you.
good
Good evening.
Thank you.
Okay, 7:30 PM, applicant Matthew Hillis requesting a special permit under section 9.3.12 of the Auburn zoning bylaw to allow for an accessory apartment on property located at 10 Mayfield Road, Auburn, Mass. Map 31, parcel 28. Is the applicant present? Yes. Could you approach the lectern, please, sir? Give us an overview of what you'd like to do. Okay.
My name's
Before
Matt
I begin,
Hillis.
sir, I apologize. So it was brought to my attention that one of the members of the board, Ms. Roach, is an abutter to this property. So she's going to recuse herself from this hearing. And Ms. Blaze, our alternate, will be moving forward the vote. And then at the next hearing, we will reverse that back. But just so everyone's aware.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
My name is Matt Hillis, and my wife and I, Eileen, own 10 Mayfield Road. And what we're trying to do, basically, is we're trying to get an approval for a special application to add an accessory apartment to the back of our home. I know 2 years ago we had come up to the town hall and talked about it, but we were in no way prepared to do anything at that time. When I found out all the stuff that was involved, we didn't have an architect, we didn't talk to a builder, we were just basically drawing pictures on a piece of paper. So, I mean, it was just, we really weren't ready to go forward at that time. At this time, we would like actually to get an approval to put an addition on the house. That the addition itself is going to be roughly, I think it's like 600 and something square feet, because there's an existing room on the house right now that's going to be rebuilt. That would be the sunroom on the back. That's going to be rebuilt to be an actual dining room for the house. Our family's getting a little larger. My mother-in-law, 76 years old, has a hard time getting around, so we basically want to do this so that she can move in with us and we can take care of her. But I also went to the sewage department because I was told that I might want to see if I can tie into sewage, because I know that I have a septic system right now which wouldn't suffice with the addition. And according to the town, I got a thing from the sewer department, and it says that there's already a connection in my property to tie into sewage. So that would have to be done before we move forward with anything else as far as the addition. But what we're looking to do is put on just a bedroom, a bathroom, and like a living room or a family type room on the back portion of the house. I don't think it'll be any detriment to the neighborhood as far as the aesthetics of the house goes. Our house is probably one of the smaller houses on the street. But I mean, I don't know what else I need to tell you guys.
Well, let me open it up to the members of the board, and we'll have some questions for you.
Absolutely.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I apologize for interrupting. Mr. Christie, excuse me. But just as a point of clarification and disclosure for myself. And so I know Mr. Hillis. I would tell you that we have no financial or business interest, although from a personal perspective, I know him from being a direct abutter to my mother-in-law who used to live in the neighborhood. And so I know him on a social level. But having no business interest, I feel no reason to recuse myself.
I would agree. I think public disclosure in this case is adequate.
I would just want to add public disclosure and the fact that I know him to be an upstanding member of the community.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Cussy?
I think it looks good. He's within the square footage. That's what an accessory apartment's for, is an in-law or a family member. Okay, right now.
Mr. Chicolo?
One question.
Yeah.
This recreation or family room?
Yes.
Have you included that in your 686 square feet?
Yes.
Or have you just included?
Yes. No. The
It's all included?
No. That's in the 600 and the whole thing actually ends up being like 800 when you put in the existing sunroom that's there. That's going to be rebuilt and made into a dining room.
So
it's like
that's not part of the accessory apartment, though?
No. That's part of the existing house.
Okay, and
I think it ends up being like 500 and maybe 70 something square feet, roughly.
Okay, and where is, again, my old eyes, the second means of egress?
It would be actually off the back of that dining room. There's a door on the side that'll come down the side portion of the garage where there's a walkway. There's a door back there, and then there's going to be a door from there into that sunroom, and there's going to be a slider on which will be the dining room. There's going to be a slider on the back of that dining room.
So there is definitely two means of egress?
Yes.
Directly to the outside?
Yes.
Okay. That's all I have.
Thank you. Mr. Maron?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Hillis, just if you can expand on your response. So have you made a decision to tie into town water and shore?
Oh, we're already on town water.
You are? Okay.
Yeah, we're going to tie into. Yeah, we have to tie into storage anyway.
Okay. And as a condition of this, you would have to tie into town sewer?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you, sir. Caleb, have you been to this property? And do you have any comments for the board?
I have not. My only comment is that the tie into town sewer would have to be a condition of the approval.
Very good. Beyond that, I don't have anything, Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Roach?
Thank you, sir.
No, she's recused.
Oh, I'm sorry, I meant Ms. Blaze, I apologize. It's getting late.
Nothing else, thank you.
Thank you. I have nothing else either. Do I have a motion to close the public hearing?
Motion to close the public hearing?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay, so we're just gonna be careful with this vote to make sure that we're, I'm sorry? Do we have any abutters for this this project? I thought we already asked that, but I may have missed it, okay. So as a roll call vote, just to make sure that we abide by our recusal there, Mr. Cussy?
Grant. Mr. Chairman, if I may,
Yes.
as a point of order, I believe we have to make a motion first.
Oh, I apologize, you're right. Do I have a motion on the proposal? I apologize.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor? Oh, no, now here we go, Mr. Cussy.
Grant.
Thank you. Mr. Chacolo?
I second it.
Mr. Barron?
I made the motion, so I fully approve.
I agree.
Approve.
Yeah, and I approve, so you're all set.
Sorry, I need to slow down.
Okay, so we do have conditions that we talked about, again, with the other previous applicant. So we have a standard special permit conditions, there's 10 of them that will be applied to this, but also as a condition of the special permit that we're gonna require the town to tie into town sewer.
Yes.
Okay, and that will be on the application requirements.
Yep, that's right.
Very good. He's all set.
Yeah, you're all set?
We're all set. All right, thank you very much. Thanks for being here. Good evening.
Okay, so we just did that one. All right, our 745 applicant, and I apologize if I say this incorrectly, Pradez LLC, requesting a special permit under section 3.2.5.1 and 4.3.5.1 of the Auburn zoning bylaws to allow a beauty shop and rendering more than 15% of a 2,500 square foot impervious surface in an Aquifer 2 zone on property located at 781 Saltbush Street and 4 Appleton Road, Auburn, Mass, map 60, page 64 and 65 is the applicant present. If you could approach the lectern, please, sir, introduce yourself. Give us an overview of what you'd like to accomplish. Oh, it's getting late for me.
Yeah.
9 o'clock? Yeah.
I do not have enough. Look at this guy.
Good evening. My name is Brian LaRochelle. I work for Graves Engineering in Worcester, and I'm representing our client, the applicant Pradez LLC. So Deanna Mills and her daughter Jennifer are the owners of Pradez LLC, and they currently own a business, a hair salon, a beauty shop elsewhere in Auburn, and they've recently bought these 3 parcels, 2 of which are this permit is for. They just bought this building, existing building, and the lot behind it. They're looking to move the beauty shop to this location to expand and own their own building, whereas they currently lease the facility that they're in now. So this is a special permit for rendering more than 15% impervious or more than 2,500 square feet in the Zone 2 of the Aquifer Protection Overlay. As part of this project, we're proposing a parking area to service this facility, and this will result in about 8,000 square feet of impervious surface. The facility is located in the highway business zone, and this use is consistent for that zoning. So just a little bit about the project. Like I said, they're going to be renovating the existing building, changing where the entrance is to the side, and then adding a 20 parking space parking lot to the rear of the facility. There'll be a curb cut on the 4 Appleton Road parcel. This new curb cut is about 135 feet from the intersection with Southbridge Street. There's ample sight distance in either direction on No new utilities are proposed. It's currently serviced by town water and sewer, and that's going to remain. The drainage for the parking lot has been designed in accordance with Mass DEP standards. We've used LID, or low impact design methods. This project's received an order of conditions through the Conservation Commission, and it's going to be in front of the Planning Board shortly, soon. So is there any other questions, or any questions?
Mr. Cussy, we'll go around again.
Yeah, so you've already been to Conservation, you said?
Yes, correct.
No, I'm good. I mean, Graves Engineering is generally where we send our work, so I'm good for now.
Okay, Mr. Chacolo.
Good evening. You do not own the building on the very corner of Southbridge Street in Appleton, correct?
Our client does own that parcel. They bought it as well, but this project is really just concerning.
So they own both buildings?
Yes, correct.
Okay. Because I was going to mention that I was concerned about some sort of planting buffer between the driveway and that other house.
Yep, it's pretty tight in there. As you can see, we have a little bit of grading, I believe, that touches onto that parcel, but they own that building as well.
And is that going to be a live-in residence or rented, or?
I'm not sure what the current plan for that building is.
Okay. All right. Other than that, I have no questions.
Okay, Mr. Maron.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple of questions related to use. So essentially, this project is to add a parking lot.
Correct.
Right? 20 spaces.
Correct.
Is the business expanding?
I'm not sure if they're expanding. They currently lease their facility that they're in now, and they're looking just to own their own building.
Okay.
They might be expanding their services a little bit.
Okay, the reason why I'm asking is just the capacity issue on adding parking. What are they doing for parking now?
I'm not sure what their current facility has.
Okay. And it just speaks to...
If I may, through the chair, I think there's some confusion. The business is moving from a different property in Auburn to the Appleton Road and Southbridge Street address.
Thank you for that clarity.
You're welcome.
I was completely overlooking that. Hence my line of questioning. It's obviously getting late. Thank you for entertaining me, but I have no further questions. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
That's amazing.
Ms. Blaze?
No, I have no questions. Thank you.
Ms. Roach?
I mean, I think I have the same, if I understand Mr. Chacolo correct, there is a one-story building there currently. So I would want to know the answer to what's happening with that. That's staying, they're turning that into the salon, they're knocking that down. What's the plan for that building?
So there's two buildings that they own on 3 parcels. The one right on the corner does not concern this project. I'm not sure what the long-term plan for that building is. The building second from the intersection is the one that they're going to renovate and turn into a hair salon. And behind that, on that parcel, as well as the budding parcel at 4 Appleton Road, is where the new parking lot's going to be.
Okay. And as far as you know, the existing structure that we're not sure what the use is, that has its own parking. If they decide to rent that out, that has parking spaces or sufficient parking for residential, if that's what they keep it as.
Correct, yeah. I believe there's 2 or 3 space parking area just right on the side of Appleton Road.
Okay. Then I'm good.
Do we have any abutters present? Again, none? Okay. Just making sure. I have no questions. I think the other board members vetted the application adequately, so.
I just have one. Snow. Is there? What are they going to do with the snow? Is there a sufficient area to push snow over there?
If I may, through the chair. The project, this is just for the aquifer, for the excessive.
Right.
Okay.
The project will have to go to site plan review. I would recommend that the applicant go to DCG prior to going to site plan review. That way, if there's any concerns, they can address them prior to that meeting.
Very good.
Excellent. So do I have a motion on the proposal?
Make a motion to close the hearing?
Oh, make a motion to close the hearing, I apologize.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Do I have a motion on the proposal?
Make a motion to grant.
Second. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
So, the application is approved, but as the building commissioner stated, that it would be strongly recommended that you go to the DCG meeting, have that panel of our town local experts vet that process, and then before you go to the planning board, that would probably be advisable. Okay. And again, the special permit standards would apply, that you'll get a copy of.
Thank you.
Congratulations, good luck.
Thank you.
All right, let's see, where are we now? What's on my paperwork here? Take a minute to get organized. Where's my cover page?
Should be the last one.
Okay, last one of the evening, 8 o'clock, a little behind. Applicant John Westerman requesting a special permit under section 9.3.12 of the Auburn zoning bylaws to allow for an accessory apartment on property located at 255 South Street, Auburn, Mass., map 75, parcel 37. Is the applicant present?
Yes.
If you could just introduce yourself and give us an overview of what you're trying to accomplish, please.
My name's Jay Gallant. I'm the architect working with the property owners, John Westermark and Doreen Westermark, who are right there. And the purpose of the application is to add an accessory apartment to the existing house and a garage, which is ancillary, and also part of the addition. So the accessory apartment will be for Doreen's mother, who is also here tonight, and they want to create a nice place for her to live where they can, all live together, but she'll still have her own place somewhat, which is the idea behind the design. So the current house is about 250 feet back from the road. It's pretty private, and the nice part is this accessory apartment will be utilizing a portion of the property, which, even though it's in front of the existing house, it's really the only place where it can work, and it'll really add to the appeal of the house, both from the street and the way the property works. So the dwelling unit itself, the current house has 4 bedrooms, private water, private septic. The plan is to essentially decommission one of the bedrooms and turn it into an office by taking out the doorway, expanding the opening, eliminating the privacy which is required for a bedroom. So it'll become, on the second floor, become an office or an open space open to the hallway, giving the opportunity to create the bedroom and living, dining, kitchen area for Doreen's mother. So the idea is to essentially combine the entrances of the front door for the existing house and the front door for the accessory apartment on a nice covered porch which will face the driveway, and then the second means of egress, which has come up in a couple of hearings previously tonight, will be through a sliding door in the back to a patio, also in a nice private area of the residence. And the garage that I mentioned is going in front of the accessory apartment. The existing house doesn't have an attached garage, so that'll address that.
Okay. Any abutters present for this particular one? No? Okay. Mr. Cussy?
Yeah, what is the square footage of this apartment?
Just under 700 square feet, so the net area is 686. If you count the exterior wall, we're at about 700, so we'll just call it 700.
686, all right. Also, so you're eliminating one bedroom in the house and just adding one in the apartment, so the septic, it's a private septic over there, right?
Correct, and it's just been tested, it passed the Title V.
Okay.
So.
That's it for me right now.
Mr. Chicolo?
Have you got the results back, or has the Board of Health already seen this?
Through the chair, the Board of Health has received, I don't believe they reviewed it yet, but I believe they received a passing Title V for a 4-bedroom septic design. The current house has 4 bedrooms. They'll be adding one for the accessory and eliminating one in the current house. My only recommendation, and also the Board of Health's recommendation, is if the application were approved, that a condition be set to not exceed 4 bedrooms without Board of Health approval or connection to town sewer.
Okay. Terrible driveway to back out of. They were coming out as I was going in today. Terrible. Especially when the owner is pushing you to get out. I have no further questions.
Thank you. Mr. Maron?
I don't have any questions. Thank you for being here.
Ms. Blaze?
So probably just a question to the chair or to Caleb. The garage is not part of this plan, is that correct? The square feet of the garage? You don't have to count that as livable space?
No, that'd be correct.
Okay. No questions.
Ms. Roach?
So I guess my only issue is also with the septic. The "we will remove a bedroom" thing really doesn't fly that well with me. You can take the door off, but in 3 months you can turn it back and we would have absolutely no idea. If I was to go for it, I would want some serious conditions about that bedroom. I want the closet taken out. I would want more than we took the door off, and we're not going to use it because we have absolutely no way to know. And as I'm sure you guys know, septic is a big thing for me. I always ask about it. So
That is a concern.
That's my only issue.
Can I ask
If
a-
I'm a
can I ask a
yes,
question?
I would have definitely conditions on the other bedroom. Or tie into town, then I have no problem at all.
There is no town.
There's no sewer nearby. But does Auburn allow deed restrictions or do deed restrictions for this sort of thing? A lot of towns do, where you just basically do an official document through the Board of Health and the Registry of Deeds that basically the owners have to promise to never have more than 4 bedrooms.
Chair, if I may, I did speak to Darlene Coyle, Board of Health, about this, and we came up with the condition of keeping the house at 4 bedrooms. The deed restriction is something we would accept, and that'd be one step further than the condition. So you could put the condition on the decision and also put the condition on there that they're required to file a deed restriction.
Okay.
Restricting the house to 4 bedrooms.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I think Ms. Roach makes a fair point as far as control when that change is made. And so can we just explore, in the existing house right now, they're going to eliminate a bedroom. But they're going to, what's the plan for that room?
Well, we're going to eliminate the door, as we talked about, and widen the opening to 5 feet, just to create a more open space.
So it's becoming living space, but it's not sleeping quarters for an additional occupant?
Right.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. I have no further comments or concerns. Do I have a motion to close the public hearing?
Yep, motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Do I have a motion on the proposal?
I'll make a motion to grant the permit
Mr. Chairman,
sorry, as written.
apologies, Mr. Chairman. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I would second the motion with the conditions as advised by the building commissioner with regard to the septic.
Yes, I agree.
I would want that stipulated based on use and what they're trying to achieve, not suggest any ill will, but let's hold them to the plan.
Absolutely. So that would be a tentative second or a firm second?
That's a firm second. Yes, so I'll absolutely clarify. So that's a firm second to the motion with the applied condition as stated by the building commissioner.
Excellent, thank you so much. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And I'm in favor. So again, we've mentioned that we have 10 special permit standard conditions that everyone applies to. Also, per the recommendation of the Board of Health and the Building Commissioner, we're gonna have a, excuse me, a guarantee that there will be no fourth or fifth bedroom added, excuse me, and that will be part of the paperwork that has to be filed at the Registry of Deeds. So it'll be a binding agreement, okay? All right, good luck, congratulations.
Congratulations. Thank you for being here, and thank you for your patience.
Yes, thank you very much for your patience. All right. So we have to go on to some new business. We have the minutes from 6:15:17 and 7:20:17. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes as written and submitted?
Make a motion to approve the minutes. Second. As written and submitted.
Aye. Any opposed? No? Okay. And do I have no other further business, so I think we're in pretty good shape. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Really? Nobody? I figured that was one.
Did Caitlin?
Thank you.